you so much, Adele. I believe you can share your screen now.
Okay. 1 second. Yeah. Can you see my screen? Is it good?
I can't see it. Perhaps I have to stop sharing 1 second.
Okay. Oh man. How are you? Been okay?
Good, good, good. Yeah, I'm excited to for your presentation. Excited for the conversations at the first session.
Yeah.
Um, and we are also live as well. So, um,
Nice. All right, let me see. I'll try again.
okay,
Yeah. We good?
perfect.
Amazing. Amazing. All right. Yeah, the sessions have been going fantastic. It's been so good to hear everyone, speak about their perspectives. It's been great. It's been fine, fantastic.
Absolutely. I think that was invigorating conversation on like the tensions between creating art for art's sake,
Mm,
but also creating art that like speaks to the people. And what are the tensions when it's co-opted and not co-opted and
yeah, for
need to
sure.
co-create art too outside of the individual paradigm.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely right.
We'll wait 1 more minute and then we'll dive and we'll wait for Jude as well too.
Yeah,
Perhaps we
I think
can,
people will just be trickling in, I think.
yeah.
Hi, Jackie.
How you doing? Doing good, and you?
I'm all right. Okay, okay.
I like the mark of the mother. That's a great title. The mother's house.
Thank you. Thanks, thanks.
Hello, hello. Okay.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. Good morning.
Good
Yeah,
morning. Hmm?
good evening here.
Oh, of course.
Super, super. Let's see. We'll start when Jude comes in. Um,
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna turn my camera off because I'm eating some breakfast, you guys. But I'm still here. Okay.
That's fine.
all right. Fantastic. Looks like Jude is joining now. I don't know if Cheryl was planning on joining as well, but I will. Yeah, I will be quiet. So we won't have any discussions after the presentations, but I
Mm,
feel like if the judges do want to make comments, I will be open to that for sure.
yeah.
But I wasn't planning on having like questions or feedback or things like that. But all right, without further ado, welcome Jude. And I will mute myself and stop video. Thank you to the Sauuti verse, an
All right.
incredible world. And you've read the processes on the Syllblecon page, and I'll just kind of let them introduce and dive into the world. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Fabrice. All right, guys. Yeah, so it's been an honor to be here. It's been a fantastic session so far. So my name is Adilehin, and I'll be together with Jude, we'll be presenting our film pitch, by the Sauuti Collective. So we're both, founding members of the Sauuti world, and basically the title of the pitch is, Mark of the Mother. And so what is the Sauuti? So the Sauuti is this shared universe that we've been building for the past like 1 year, and it's just been, this every 2 weeks we get together on Zoom, and it's been this fantastic community of African writers. So we have, people from Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa all come together, to create this world. And the world is based on African myths, science fiction, fantasy, world building, traditions. And before I get into the pitch itself, just keep at the back of your mind that it's a world that's got two suns and five planets. And yeah, so we'll crack on with the pitch. So the log line is that, on one of the planets, on planet Wimbo, a slave girl to a species of sentient mushrooms, no less, is recruited by an order, told she is God incarnate, and now she must battle a cosmic planet-consuming monster to save the Sauuti from extinction. Okay, so what's the synopsis? So the basic summary is that we're starting at the end of the Sauuti, basically. So it's been 100 billion years, and the Sauuti is dying, and this was going to happen as part of the sort of the story building, world building of the Sauuti. And one of the suns, the larger sun Zuva, cannibalizes the smaller sun, and then this beast of darkness called Ngafandili starts to consume the whole the planets. Now, this isn't meant to happen. Even though it was written that it could, the mother god was meant to stop this. So there's an order of magicians who believe that God is trapped in human form, and all those will bear the mark of the mother. And then they try to find all those who bear the mark of the mother, basically. So there's this. So this girl is our hero. So she's a slave girl on an island, on a planet, and she's an unlikely candidate because her life has been just suffering. And but what the group of magicians do is that they take all those who have the mark of the mother, they put them on an island, and then they set a monster loose on them, believing that only the mother herself can survive that event. So basically, she survives it, and then now to save the universe, she must remember her past lives, and she must become God, basically. So what's the show cross? So what movies or series are similar to this story? So Cloud Atlas is one, mainly because in the story we get to explore the past lives of the mother on different planets. And so the story goes back and forth between the adventures of our hero as she tries to sort of fulfill the goals of the story, and then all the individual stories of the different lives of the mother, that like the lives that she has lived on all the different planets like in the past. So you have that back and forth, going back and forth between time. And then of course it's also like the Matrix, because constantly throughout the series we're wondering if she's the one. Is she truly the mother? Is she truly God incarnate? And of course it's also like Love, Death and Robots, mainly because each episode feels wildly so different from the previous one, because we are delving into different stories, and each story is rich with cultural world building, and it's so diverse, and it's of course chock full with science fiction, fantasy, speculative fiction, myth. So who are the key characters? So of course we have Lola, who's the sort of the hero of the story. She's rescued from the mines, and then she's made to face this creature. She does not believe that she's the mother incarnate. Her life has been a hardship of unbearable proportions. And then the thing now is that will she come to her power in time to save the dying Sauuti? So the themes here are themes of destiny, purpose. She goes through this hero's journey to become this cosmic creature, basically. But then throughout, she's constantly doubting herself, and she's wondering, is she really the one who they say that she is? And then, of course, we've got the mentor, who is Shem Jaja. So he's the warrior priest who finds this girl in the mines of Wimbo and rescues her from the mushrooms. In this image, you can see the mushrooms behind him. So his story is that his past is marred by violence, having lost his home world to the encroaching horde of Ngafandili. He will sacrifice himself for the cause. And as the series progresses, he becomes the father that Lola never had. So when you think about the two of them, what goes through my mind are, those in movies like, Joe and Ellie in The Last of Us, if you've seen Last of Us. Of course, Roland and Jake in The Dark Tower. So these are characters who sort of bond over their quest to achieve a particular goal, and they have this father-daughter, like relationship that at the end becomes a bit, tragic. So what are the so for the pilots, we start and like at the beginning, with Shem Jaja having just found this girl and taken her back to the order on Zizefeni. So the planet, so this is the planet, one of the planets. It's the farthest planet from the two suns. Okay, and at the end of that episode, when all those who bear the mark of the mother have been found and kept on that island, and the beast, is consumed, there's violence and it's killing everybody. The cliffhanger is when the beast sort of bears down on Lola. I mean, I'm wondering, does she survive? Because she's the only one left. And how does she survive? She's just a little girl. She's about 6 years old. How does she survive this creature? And then when we get to the next episode, we see that she has, survived it by some means. And then now we learn that, she has to journey from Zizefeni, which is the last planet. And she has to journey from planet to planet, all the way to the dying sun, and be cast into it before she can rise like a phoenix from the flames as the mother. So it's sort of like, okay, my life wasn't great before, but now it seems like it's going to get worse. I'm going to be, have to sort of commit a kind of suicide to be able to become this thing that I don't even believe that I am. So at the end of that, we're wondering if, does she respond to the call? Does she agree to go on this journey across the planets? Okay. So by episode 3, of course, she responds to the call. She's an active hero. She decides that she's going to go on that journey. And the thing is that, the group of magicians, they believe that for her to actually become the mother, on every single planet that she goes to, she has to find like an artifact. And when she finds that artifact that bears the mark of the mother and she touches it, she goes into this death-like sleep. And she goes into a trance. And in this trance, she relives the past life of the mother on that planet. So that becomes sort of like, that's how we get into like the Cloud Atlas type story where we go back and forth in time. And at the ending of that, we realize that she has to find all the artifacts on every single planet. And that's going to be very hard to find because some planets are run by monsters, some are just impossible to navigate, and all sorts of horrors like await them. And then you have like the those who don't want her to achieve her goal, called Ngaf and Dile, and they serve as like the villains of the story. Okay. So if she doesn't find all the artifacts and she gets thrown into the fires of Zuva, that's the dying sun, she just dies without a chance of resurrection. Okay. So when she finds this artifact, so on planet Maui, so Maui is one of the planets in the Sauuti-verse. It's this, planet where it's got these sentient creatures, all these, various creatures that just coexisting with human beings or with creatures that look like humans. And one of the creatures that used to exist there is called the Ba. And this crab-like species who the most interesting thing about them is that they consume like other creatures for, to advance their genes. Okay. So she relieves her time at school, who is an incarnate of the mother. And this story is a fantastic story. Published in the anthology, in our first anthology that was published in November, November 23rd, I think. And the title of that story is called Way of Ba. And it's one of the best science fiction stories I've ever read. Actually, it's amazing. And in this story, we learn that school is this dying crab, who is shunned by the species when she goes against them, when they decide that they're going to start consuming humans to be able to gain all the advantages that humans have. And the reason why she goes against them is because she believes that humans are corrupt, and that she doesn't want that corruption to spread into their own gene pool, basically. So in this sub story within the main story, we learn, or she learns, all the events that happen on that world that led to the mass extinction of all creatures on that world. Okay, and how all of these past lives are sort of like intertwined and complex. And it's also sort of important to note that when she goes into this trance-like states, she's in this trance-like state for days. And then Shem Jaja, who is her mentor, has to carry her. So just imagine this chap carrying this, teenage girl on his back, having to cross, mountains and seas. And usually she wakes up in a completely different place from where she started. And usually Shem is either is half dead, having had to sort of fight off all sorts of creatures and people to be able to protect her while she goes on this spirit journey into this timeline. So the themes here, of course, are corruption of power, human greed as well. And then so when she leaves, when they leave planet Maui, and so planet Maui is a weird planet because of the events that happen in this story. And because of the events that happen in the story, the planet is in what we call chronal acceleration, meaning it is moving, it is much more forward in time compared to all the other planets, based on the events that happened within the story. Anyway, they survive that planet and go to the moon of Maui, which we call Pina. So Pina is the moon of Maui, and in present time, Pina is run by robots basically. So what happened was, after the mass extinction that happened on Maui, which we learn from this trance that she goes into, we learn that last surviving people, babies basically, were raised on the moon by this artificial intelligence. Now, because it was now this like so basically, when she gets to that moon, she also finds and she lives her life, and she goes back in time and remembers her time as this robot Zova, who is also a past incarnate of the mother. And Zova's story is published in the Mother Son anthology as well. Also a very great story, if I might say so myself, because it is my story in the anthology. So it's and the story of Zova is basically that it's a story of fatherhood. So at the beginning of the story, when she goes back into that trance-like state and she becomes Zova, Zova is pregnant. So is pregnant with his child, like a human child. And the robots are programmed by the main, robots basically to destroy like any kids that they have that shows any affinity for magic, because basically they feel like like it was delving into dark arts that caused the death of all the creatures on the planet. So the robot is basically like saying, it's all going to be science, no magic. Any child that shows any magical skills has to be killed by the robot itself. So this robot is in a dilemma. So Zova is in a dilemma because he's raised this child, he's given birth to this child that's a human child, and also raised this child, and he loves this child in more ways than a robot can love it, like a human child. And then the child then shows this skills, and then his programming kicks in that he has to kill the child. So his story is about how he tries to fight his own programming to be able to protect that child. So it's basically a story about fatherhood, about how fathers, what we do for our own kids, how we destroy parts of ourselves to be able to make sure that our kids do well. So there are wonderful pockets of fantastic stories like that she has to experience as she goes from planet to planet. And she also learns things about the mother, about herself, about the world that she's in as she moves from this planet. and she gets skills that help her to be able to sort of help her on the journey that she's on, so to speak. So, and then she gets to another planet, and then she relieves her time there as Sinner. Sinner's story is published as well, and Sinner basically, Sinner's story is a story of handicap. He's a handicapped child in this community on this planet, and to be able to win the love of the community, he has to hunt fearsome beasts. And so as she lives her life as this creature, she learns to fight, she learns to hunt, and that helps her in her journey as well. So she goes through all of that as she goes through each planet. So she gets to another planet, experiences a different thing, and that goes on and on and on, whilst the story is still ongoing. Whilst she's still traversing the world on her way to the dying sun, so to speak. And so it's multi-layered. There's so many things going on. It's sort of like a mind, fuck of plenty emotions and plenty of things. And of course, you've got the like the villains of the story who have their own backstory as well, and they're the ones who are trying to make sure that she does not achieve her goal of becoming this cosmic being that can push them back into the darkness. And the story is also introduced in Hologiri, which is also published in the Mother Sound Anthology. Okay. So in the concluding episodes of the Sauuti-verse, our duo, they've been through the rich and diverse Sauuti-verse. They've seen the planet through their own eyes. They've battled hordes of evil beasts, thralls, and familiars. Their relationship has flourished, and now they've bonded by, as father and daughter on their quest. But Lola has only experienced a few of her past lives, and they both know that she's not there yet to be cast into the fires of Zuba. Shem is also doubting himself, his belief, his faith, and he's beginning to even doubt whether it is true, that if she's cast into the fires, she would emerge as this this cosmic creature. And so they're at that point where they have to make a decision, and I think that's where we leave them, with a cliffhanger, and go into season 2. So I'll hand over to Jude, who would talk briefly about the Sauuti-verse, what we've been doing, what we've published, the world building Bible, what the Sauuti-verse has been like, and then we also have a trailer. We'll go into the trailer afterwards. Jude, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Adelehin. That was a great exploration of the story. So I think it's worth taking a pause for a second just to look at the world where all this amazing stuff is happening. So we call it the Sauuti-verse. Sauuti is a South African word that has to do with voice. It's an adaptation. And the reason we chose that name is because this world that we collaboratively built over, I don't know, 14 months since the last days of the pandemic, it's a world built around the power of sound. So basically, everything that works in this universe is made up of sound. Sound is technology, sound is magic, sound is communication, it's energy, it's pretty much everything that this world is about. So it's taking away our visual senses and putting us in a situation where sound is pretty much the main thing that makes this place work. And Adelaine has described that it's a binary star system with couple of planets around each of the stars, and then a circumorbital planet that goes up, orbits both suns. And the way it's been created is that the start of the humanoid civilization, which spreads across this world, was actually on one planet, an Earth analog called Wimbo. And on Wimbo, the people there are, very Earth-like, and it's the same feeling of could be an Earth. Um, Across from Wimbo, going from right to left, you have Maui, which Adelaide described as a world that is dead, literally. So everything that lives there is gone extinct. And we only hear the stories like the bug from the past before the place was annihilated. Maui was a powerful civilization. And around Maui, there's a moon called Pinar, which is where one of the protagonists of the story, the robot Zova, is from. Now, Pina is an offshoot of the civilization of Maui, who were stranded on the moon when the planet went extinct, essentially. And they relied on technology to keep them, to keep the civilization going. And so you have a robotic cyborg type existence on Pina. They're more techno based than magic based, which is what drives a lot of the rest of the world. And they orbit the sun called Zuva. Now, across the other side, you've got another sun called Juaju. In Juaju, around Juaju, there are two planets. One is called Orinorin, and that's a world of storms, sonic storms. You imagine sound, you can see it's a gas giant with lots of energy in the atmosphere. Very tough place to live. And in there, you have cultures and civilizations made around the use of sound as an energy source. So imagine petroleum, oil. So it's a rich place with lots of danger and some amazing stories built in there. And then across on the same sun, you have another world called Ekukwe, which is called the Hollow World because it's made up of caves. So when you describe these worlds, you can see that each story has a character based on the planet where it's experienced. And each of these planets, all originating, the humanoids at least, from Wimbo, have their own cultures, their own quirks, their own ways of being. So when Lola goes from each planet and relives the life as the mother in those planets, those things color the stories that are being told. And in the anthology we published, we've got authors writing stories about each or set in each of these planets and describing a certain aspect of the culture that has evolved from this humanoid species and non-humanoids. Some of the authors are on this call, so feel free if there's a Q&A or comments to add your own. But one thing I wanted to focus on was this notion of the mother. So the story, as is told in present day, this last planet that circumnavigates both suns is called Zizefini. And Zizefini is a very, powerful civilization. They consider themselves the origin of everything. They are seen as the master race would be a too strong a word, but they are seen as the benevolent master race of the rest of the civilizations they encounter. And they've placed themselves in a sort of origin position that theirs is where everything started from. And they tell the story about the mother, which is the common deity across this planet, that this mother gave birth to Zephany first. Whereas in fact, it was Wimbo. This is a bit of a spoiler, but just so you get the tensions across the worlds. So in Zephany, they have annual gatherings called the Bomariri, where they try and get all the planets together, and they use it as a place to, assert control over the culture, magic, technology, and all the things that goes on. But it's a faltering story because Zephany was as powerful, Maui rather, the extinct planet was as powerful as Zephany, and there was all kinds of things that go on, which are all explored in the stories that Lola will actually inhabit as she goes through the experiences of the mother. So one thing I want to leave you with is the thought that across 14 months, we had 10, I think it was, 10 authors across this planet writing stories about our shared world. So it was this collaborative world building experience that really makes this thing magic, in my opinion. We have eye surgeons in Glasgow who was basically telling the story earlier. We have an engineer in Kuala Lumpur who's the editor, Wale Talabi. We have a full-time author in Melbourne, Australia. We've got a lawyer and comic artist in Boston, an academic and graphic artist in Oxford from South Africa. We have a music teacher in Finland. We have 2 actors in Nigeria, 1 in Ghana, and myself, a technology consultant in London. Listen, the building of this world and the story that Lola tells actually reflects that magic which happened at the tail end of the pandemic, where people from across different parts of the world with a common heritage in Africa started with a story of a joined world where we start thinking differently about things. We start thinking what ifs, and we start creating this journey that Lola goes through in her arc and narrative. So hopefully, if you look at the anthology, you'll get a sense of that. And the idea is to bring that same sense of wonder and what if and alternative ways of being and going back to values of humanity across in the film itself, and hence the pitch we have today. So I hope you will take all that on board as you watch the trailer that we're about to show you. But thank you for your